Hello and welcome back to the channel. So, in this video we are going to be restoring a Corgi 224 Bentley Continental. Now obviously this car doesn't look like the thumbnail because I actually have two of these. So the one is a black and silver, which I want to keep because it's in quite nice, although it's a bit chipped, it's quite interesting little car, and I quite like the damage on it, to be quite honest. So it's an interesting thing. Whereas this one is a bit more damaged and it's got a few issues. So basically these cars were made between 61 and 65, I think, or 66, and they featured an automatic steering system. So basically if you leant on the car as you're pushing it along, it would make the steering turn in the direction you were, with the side of the car you're pressing down. It also features a spare wheel. It's got an opening boot, and it's got jewelled headlights, plus some chrome features, transparency, and an interior. So for the time, it was quite a thing, and I think they made over 1 million of these, so they are actually quite common. Now the other notable feature of this car is its grey tyres, because I think they only made this car with the grey tyres. So as you can see there, right, the spare wheel's missing, so it's rather like a modern car. You don't even get a space saver, so we can all moan about that. Now this car comes with jewelled rear lights, but they're quite often broken because all they are is they're just set into a piece of plastic which is put into the corners of the car, and they're very easily damaged or knocked off. As you can see, the suspension on the front, one side moves freely, but the other side, if you put quite a lot of force on it, it won't move. There you go, so you can get a good squeeze, nothing's going to happen there. So you can see there's an issue there, but we'll get into that when we get it apart. So there's only 3 rivets to drill out, so we're just going to remove those, and then we'll be able to lift the base off and see what we got. Okay, so we've got the base off, we're getting the base off, and we'll be able to show you what's inside the car. So on the base you have the springs for the rear suspension, and there's like posts and stuff to hold up the seats, the interior and the glazing, because in this car it's not actually held on with the rivets, so it'll all come apart quite easily. So you can sort of see the shapes of that. Okay, so you can see the car's red interior. On this car it's actually in quite good condition actually. And you can see how the steering works. So basically each wheel travels up and down on a spring, and the one that goes down pulls the other one round, if you see what I mean. So basically that's how you get your automatic steering. Now I think Corgi only did this for 3 models, and I think it turned out to be very problematic to produce, so they actually abandoned it on the other vehicles. And this is, I think, the last time that they used it. Now as you can see, the one side goes up and down fine, but the other side, as you'll see in a moment, just doesn't want to move. Now what that turns out to be is it's basically that casting has worn, and it's kind of rubbing as it goes down, because it's not the hole's gone slightly larger, and so it's kind of snagging because it can twist slightly. So I think whoever had this used to like turning right a lot. And there's a bit of wear on the tyres as well, so it has done a little bit of mileage. So basically we'll just sort that out by cleaning it effectively. Okay, so we'll take the steering off, the wheels and their sort of hubs. Okay, we'll put those in a bag for safekeeping. And let's have a look at the rest of the car. Okay, so we'll just take the posts out and their springs. So you can kind of think of these as like coilover struts on your car. And the hubs just travel up and down those shafts. And the springs are okay, nothing wrong with those. And these posts will just pull out was just testing there to see if there was a lip on them, but there isn't. As obviously these steel pins are much harder than the wet metal casting going up and down them. Now just taking the bottom of the boot out, which contains the sort of little spring clip thing that allows the boot to open and close. And you can see this has all been plated. Now with the bottom of the boot removed, we can now just remove the boot lid itself. You can see it's quite nicely cast little boot actually. It's quite delicate, it's quite well done. Okay, so back inside the car now. We'll just pull those pins out. See, they just come out quite easily. And you see they're made of, I assume they're stainless steel or something. There's no wear in them at all. After 60 years. Okay, so now we have the red vacuum formed interior, which is in very good condition actually, because my other car, my black and silver version of this car, is actually bleached from being in the sun. Like one half of it is actually white, or whitey cream coloured sort of thing from being in the sun. It's left on a shelf or something, whereas this one's in perfect condition. And also, unlike my other car, you can see like the interior, the glazing is just held in by the bottom of the car. The glazing's perfect on this. It's just a bit dirty, but apart from that, it's fine. Whereas the other car I've got, it's smashed. It's got a big crack that goes all horizontally around the one side of the glass. So you can sort of see how that's just located. And it's just really the bottom of the car holds it in. And also, just so you know, it says Bentley. It's printed on top of the plastic, so you know what car it's for. Obviously, if you look at it from the right side, it'll say Bentley. There you go, I caught on eventually. Pretty quick. Now the car has front and rear jewelled lights, and these are just really just pressed in, so we can actually just pop these out quite easily from behind with a little bit of pressure from a screwdriver. And you can see the tail lights as well. It's not focusing too well here, the camera, but you can see the one light's actually okay. And what is, they're held in a slot, and when you take the bumper off, they basically just fall out. The original fit lights do. The replacement ones, as you'll see, just aren't as good. But the one on the other side's completely smashed, so I've ordered two just in case, so at least so they match up. So the rear light clusters are just a piece of plastic, so if they are smashed off, it's nothing to do with the casting of the car, because I've seen a couple where they've been quite badly broken, and you think it's actually the casting smashed, but it's not, it's just the plastic. So the only thing to do really now is just drill out that rivet so we can get the bumper and the radiator off, and then we can start doing some work on this. So I'm just cutting the top of the rivet with the little tool. There you go, it is now removed. So you can see there how the radiator is held onto the front of the car. Just try to get to focus. So it's just a whacking great big hole there for it to have a rivet pressed through from behind. Okay, with just a little bit of light pressure from behind, you can just pop the headlights out. Simple as that. Doesn't require very much force at all, because they're only plastic after all. Okay, and all the parts as they come off are put in separate little Ziploc bags, so we don't lose anything. So I am organised, believe it or not. May not seem it sometimes. Okay, and so what we're going to do now is put the major components in some hot water, quite very hot water, not boiling though, but not far off. As it was stinging my fingers to get, I was just trying to put the car shell in such a way that you can see what's going on. Although realistically it's a bit of a waste of time doing this because it just fogs up straight away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip the shell and the plated parts and the underside, because there's some gunge on it. I might as well just do it in one go. Now I've never really liked this cream and green colour scheme, I have to admit. I've always felt like a car like a Bentley looks better like black for example, or a burgundy. Now I don't really have a good burgundy available, so I'm just going to do this black because I think it looks quite cool. But that's just me, maybe. Now I do know how much caustic soda to put in, but I don't dump it all in one go for a very good reason, and that is if you get it wrong, you'll actually make the water boil completely and it'll actually explode back out at the top of the bottle, which I don't want it to have happen. And also I wanted to give the viewer some idea of what's happening, just to sort of like visually see what goes on. Now whilst this is fermenting, I'll tell you a little story. On the way to college the other day, someone a few cars ahead of me dumped a kitten out of the car onto the main road, an A road, but basically a big road not far from me. And I couldn't quite see the car, but I stopped anyway, and in between the traffic and the cars and the lorries and stuff, I fished this little kitten out of the road. And poor little thing got untreated cat flu, so it was nearly blind. And it must have only been about 4 or 5 weeks old. It was a little tiny little thing. So we took it home, got it to the vets, gave it eye drops and stuff, we wormed it and everything, and now it's about 3 times the size it was, and it's running around like a mad thing. So I've gained a cat, but I have to watch out where he is because he tends to knock things over at the moment, so every now and again if I seem distracted I'm just trying to make sure he doesn't come into the room. Bless him. Right, so I think this must be done, so I think we'll tip this out in a minute and give it a rinse and see what it looks like. So these are the parts in a recycled curry fast food tray. And you can see everything's come out rather nicely, all the paint's come off and all the plating's been removed. So at this point I was feeling very pleased with myself having got this all done nice and efficiently, and it's all come out really well. But you might see a deliberate mistake. So as you can see we've got all the parts stripped off, but I forgot to do one. Can you guess which it was? Yes, I'd forgotten to do the boot lid. Ah, I'm an idiot. Very annoying. Right, okay, so we'll have to... Actually, there was sweat. So anyway, I then went and stripped that as well, and I'm just going to do a quick edit here, and no one will ever know that I made such a stupid mistake. Hooray! Right, so here are all the parts nicely stripped ready for painting, that I did not make any mistakes during. Alright, so let's get on. Right, so having stripped it, of course, what happens is the finish is always a bit matte from using the caustic soda, but if you give it a run over with the old little brush, fake Dremel, whatever you like to call it, it polishes up really nicely. Now it's funny, the metal on some cars polishes really well, and then you'll get another car, it'll come out really matte and horrible. And I did notice that when I did the Mercedes 300 there, 200, the hard top came out slightly matte and dark, but the body shell came out beautifully silver. So it's kind of interesting little observation that. I don't know how that's worked for other people, and I think on the Morris J van it had a dark patch where it's obviously a different type of metal. So I don't know if they'd, whatever they'd been throwing in the furnace that day had affected the makeup of the material. I don't know. No, it is very satisfying when you're polishing these up and they do come up nice and shiny, like come up that brilliant shine. It's very pleasing. Now again, I don't really want to do this too perfectly because I always feel that takes away from the vintage feel of these things, because they always had imperfections. And I think if you overdo it, it's not. Later castings always seems a lot cleaner when you get into the 70s. I think they seem better. Usually they seem better, but ones of this age always have these little pot marks and things. I kind of like that. Now, just what I mentioned at this point, obviously I've been very busy with being back to school, and I've got kids as well, so getting them into school, etc. So I thought something was wrong with my phone when it was saying that the subscriber count was going up. Because I thought this video, when it came out, it would be the, say, 200 subscribers and going, yay, go team, well done. But no, I think at the time of doing this, we'd just gone past the 400 subscriber number, which is quite incredible really. So obviously thank you very much for subscribing, guys, and being patient with my blowing things up, bending things, melting things, scratching things, occasionally dissolving things. But yeah, so it's quite something. So I'm very pleased that you guys have dropped by and keep coming back. So thanks very much. As you can see here, we're getting everything nicely polished up. Now the bumper and the boot area, although they come up quite shiny, they're not going to look as good as if they were plated. So I think I'm going to spray those silver, and I've got some special paint I'm going to experiment with on that I got them from the hardware shop. Yes, I know some of you might be going shot gasp horror, but it might not be too bad. So you can get the bumper up and the grille all nice and shiny. There you go. Not bad, is it? Okay, so here we are back in the spray booth. We've got our patented toilet roll holder to hold the car with. And we're going to spray this gloss black. So I'm just going to spray the bonnet first, boot. I keep saying bonnet, I don't know why I keep saying that. I'm just going to leave that held in the forceps to act as the support for it whilst it's drying. Now that's a relatively easy spray job because it's only really got the two sides and it's quite small part. But I will still manage to spray my hand in the process. Go me. Okay, and I'm just going to spray obviously the car body the same colour. And try not to spray my hand, just making sure it's flowing alright. Because obviously what you don't want to do is just randomly just squirt at the car and spit all over it. So basically what you should be doing is spraying away and then waving it to and fro over the car. So if you get that initial spit, it'll just do it onto the paper. Now obviously black's probably the easiest colour to spray going because its covering power is very good. So just making sure you get that point where the paint's wet, but not so much that it floods. Now I decide to use a glove when there's no chance of getting paint on my hand at all. I don't know what I'm thinking these days. Now for this, we're going to use a different type of metallic silver, which is supposed to be very mirror-like, according to the can. So we shall give this a go and see what it comes out like. Okay, so here I'm just giving the transparency a clean up. I've already just washed it in soapy water, and I give it a bit of rubber polish, but otherwise I think it's fine. Even when new, these things had scratches on them, but I think we can improve on it slightly. Okay, I've just given it a quick dip in floor polish, and I'm going to leave it to dry. Okay, now those grey tyres are very manky looking. If you compare it to the replacement for the boot, the spare wheel for the boot, you can see that the grey's a bit different. So I think maybe we can brighten these tyres up with a good wash. Now they are obviously original tyres, so I don't want to remove them off the hubs just in case they break, because sometimes even when you hit them with water that happens. So I'm just going to wash them as is on the axles and see how we get on. So we're just going to use a bit of soapy water and a nylon brush and just give it a little bit of a scrub. As you can see there, it's actually starting to come off already. So obviously that's so many years of finger grease and, well, you hate to think really that those tyres have been running over. So I'm giving the front wheels a bath as well, put them all in to give them a soak. And we're just going to give them a gentle scrub with the nylon brush. And see how they come up. Now obviously you don't hear much sound on my videos because usually I've got the radio going or I'm listening to music. So I think on this occasion it might have been a mixture of Kraftwerk and Bauhaus. So there you go, for a certain age you'll know what that is, or not as the case may be, or not care. But anyway, so obviously I have to mute these things out. So anyway, so hopefully I get all the muck off the tyres, and there'll be a day or two before that paint comes off my thumb. I'm really fond of painting my thumb, I've got to stop doing that. Now as you can see, what a difference a scrub makes. So we're getting rid of the greeny grey grime. Might have a bit of snot on it for all I know. It's coming off. Sorry, I just can't quite see what I'm doing when it's in front of the camera. So you can sort of see the difference between the one tyre and the other now. So that's quite a difference, I think you'll agree. Ah, focus, come on. If only had the money for a camera. I plead poverty now for per camera work. Ah, there you go. Oh, almost. Oh, it's those suds. Oh, it's annoying. It's like watching paint. There you go. Now, can you see the difference in that? That's something, isn't it? A lot of hard cornering has been done over the years. So we'll carry on washing those and get them all nice and clean now. Now you'll notice the tyres are a darker grey than the replacement grey. So I'm not quite sure if these tyres were really as white looking as that. Also the tyre's a little bit bigger as well. But even so, it's not bad. It's clean. Okay, so we're just going to put the headlights back in. And I think in the background at this point I was playing Massive Attack. So there you go. Hooray for the 90s. And these are just fitted by a little bit of gentle pressure to put the plastic back into the casting. It doesn't take very much force at all, so you can understand how sometimes these got knocked out. Okay, so we've just put the post set back in for the steering, and we're just putting the steering components back on. So we've got our suspension springs and our steering gear. Okay, just going to get the wheels in and the cross link for the steering. Okay, so we'll just put the transparency in. It just sits in there, nice and easy. And then we'll just put our interior in on top of it. Nice and stress-free, this one. Now I've got replacement aftermarket rear light clusters, and they're okay, but they're not actually the same shape as the one that they're replacing, which is a bit annoying. So what I'm doing is I'm putting some glue on the end of a cocktail stick. I'm using that to dab glue into each hole. And then what I'm doing then is, with a bit of moisture on my finger, I'm picking up the jewels and then pushing them into the holes. So you should see the next one come along any time soon. Because I found if I try to use tweezers, there's just flew everywhere. So there you go, that's how that's done. Now you can see the difference between the two replacement rear lights and the surviving original one. Now the original one will just fit into the slots and then is trapped by the bumper. But these replacement ones, no, that's not how they're going to work. They're going to have to be glued in, because they just start, they'll just drop out if you do that. So a bit of a pain. So I'm just using some white glue, PVA glue, to hold them in to start with. And if that's not strong enough, then I'll use super glue. But at least with the PVA glue, you can kind of pull it apart if you ever have to. I'm not crazy about these replacement ones, I have to admit. And they're always grey. Well, they're supposed to be silver, but they don't look as good as the originals, it has to be said. I was listening to Bela Lugosi's Dead by Bauhaus twice during this, but Halloween's coming up, so I'm allowed, although I have to admit I do play that record all year round. I have to admit I'm a bit weird like that. Okay, so we've got the bottom of the boot in, which helps to support the rear of the windscreen and the interior, and holds the bonnet on at boot. I keep saying that. Now here I'm just using a bit of super glue to hold the radiator and the bumper on. So I've just put that on where the stud is for the where the rivet was, so it's only glued in that one point. Okay, so now on goes the base plate, which already has the rear axle put onto the spring, and we'll start screwing this thing together. It's going to look quite nice. So I'll just put the first screw in. Something very nice about just screwing the whole thing together and getting the move on. Okay, we'll just put the spare tyre in the boot, because you have to have a spare tyre. If you don't have a spare tyre, you're mad going out and about. Okay, that looks quite nice. Alright, let's see what this looks like. Okay, so I think this is a bit of an improvement on how the car was. So we now have grey tyres instead of grey and disturbingly green tyres. Ugh, it smell a little bit. Okay, so we've cleaned up the glazing. We've given ourselves a nice black paint job. We've replaced the rear light clusters with third-party ones. I'm not crazy about them, but it's what I could get. We sprayed the bumper, the rear bumper and boot floor, and the front bumper and radiator grille in a sort of shinier silver. It's not quite mirror finish though, but it's not bad. We've given the hubs a good clean up, and we got ourselves a nice shiny black paint job, which I think looks quite nice. Okay, so if you liked that, please subscribe, comment, like, etc. Also, don't forget to push that little bell thing, because even if you're subscribed, you don't always get told by YouTube that there's a new video. I think this is a feature of YouTube, but there you go. And thanks for dropping by and watching me do stuff. Thank you very much. Okay, bye.